The letter arrived on a Tuesday, crisp and formal, with the Halston and Fry embossed logo gleaming against the cream envelope. Wren Blackwood stared at it on her kitchen counter for 3 full minutes before finding the courage to open it. Final notice. The words hit her like a physical blow. The clock on her microwave read 2:17 a.m. She'd spent the last 6 hours at Portland Memorial Hospital with Lark, whose condition had worsened again. The doctors were talking about new treatments, experimental ones with price tags that made Wren's stomach lurch. Her fingers trembled as she dialed the law firm's number, not caring about the hour. To her surprise, someone answered. "Ms. Blackwood," the receptionist said, sounding unsurprised. "Mr. Fry has been expecting your call. You're scheduled tomorrow at 9 a.m. Scheduled for what? But the line had already gone dead. The next morning, Wren entered the gleaming steel and glass tower housing Halston and Fry. Her worn boots squeaked against the polished marble floor, her thrift store blazer a pathetic attempt at professionalism. "Ms. Blackwood," the receptionist's smile was too practiced to be genuine. "15th floor. They're expecting you." In the elevator, Wren checked her reflection in the mirrored walls. Dark circles shadowed her hazel eyes. Her honey-brown hair was pulled back in a hasty ponytail, revealing the sharp angles of her face. At 25, she looked a decade older. The weight of her mother's death, her sister's illness, and their crushing, debt-carving premature lines around her eyes. The elevator doors opened to reveal a cavernous waiting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Portland. A man stood at the window, his back to her. "Ms. Blackwood," said an older woman, who appeared at her side. "I'm Helena Fry. Thank you for coming on such short notice." Wren nodded, her throat dry. The letter said, "Final notice." Final notice for what, exactly? The man at the window turned around. Thorne Everett. Even if his face hadn't been plastered across business magazines, she would have known him anywhere. Tall and imposing in a suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent, his dark hair precisely cut, his features sharp enough to slice. His eyes were a pale, unnerving blue, like winter ice over deep water. "For your mother's debt," he said, his voice low and controlled. "To me," Helena Fry gestured toward a conference room. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." The conference table was polished mahogany. Documents were already laid out in precise stacks. Wren remained standing, even as Thorne and Helena took seats. "My mother didn't owe you anything," Wren said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I would have known." Thorne pushed a folder toward her. Eleanor Blackwood borrowed $7 million from Everett Holdings over the past 3 years. The money was transferred directly to Portland Memorial Hospital. Wren's knees weakened. She gripped the back of a chair. "That's impossible," she whispered, but deep down she knew it wasn't. The experimental treatments for Lark, the specialists flown in from Johns Hopkins, the new wing at Portland Memorial that had miraculously opened up a bed for her sister when all others were full. "Your mother kept it from you," Thorne said, watching her with that strange, evaluating gaze. "She was very specific about that. But she died before repayment could begin." Wren sank into the chair. "I can't possibly pay that kind of money. The bookstore barely covers our rent." "We're aware of your financial situation," Helena said, her voice clinically sympathetic. "However, the terms of the loan were quite clear. Your mother put up all family assets as collateral. You're going to take our home?" Wren's voice cracked. "The bookstore? Everything?" "That's one option," Thorne said, leaning forward slightly. "There's another." He slid a different document across the table. Wren caught the word marriage in the heading and jerked back as if burned. "Is this a joke?" "I never joke about business, Miss Blackwood." Thorne's eyes remained fixed on her, that same assessing look. 5 years as my wife. In exchange, I'll forgive the debt and ensure your sister receives the best possible care." Wren stared at him in disbelief, anger rising in her chest. "You can't be serious." "Entirely serious." He tapped the document with one manicured finger. "Your mother's debt, your sister's medical expenses, all covered. Your bookstore remains yours. After 5 years, you walk away free and clear." "And what do you get out of this arrangement?" Wren asked, her voice brittle. Thorne's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes as they moved over her face. I require a wife for business purposes. You're suitable. Wren's laugh was harsh. Suitable? I'm a broke bookstore owner with nothing to offer someone like you. You'll find I have my reasons. Thorne pushed back from the table and stood. You have until tomorrow to decide. Choose wisely, Miss Blackwood. Your sister's future depends on it. He left without another word, leaving Wren staring at a contract that would either save or destroy her life. Wren spent the night at Portland Memorial, curled uncomfortably in the vinyl chair beside Lark's bed. Her sister's breathing was shallow, her skin translucent against the hospital sheets. At 19, Lark looked 14, her body ravaged by the autoimmune disease that had ambushed her 3 years ago. You're still here. Lark's voice was weak as her eyes fluttered open. Don't you have the bookstore today? Mia's covering. Wren forced a smile. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. Lark attempted a grin. The usual. Wren reached for her sister's hand, struck as always by how fragile it felt. The meeting with Thorne Everett replayed in her mind. Marriage. The word felt absurd, archaic. People didn't arrange marriages for debt repayment in 2023. But then, billionaires like Thorne Everett operated by different rules than the rest of the world. Lark's doctor entered, Dr. Winters, the specialist whose astronomical fees had appeared mysteriously pre-approved last year. Now Wren understood why. How's our patient today? Dr. Winters smiled, checking Lark's chart. Good news. You've been approved for the experimental treatment we discussed. Wren stiffened. Approved by whom? Dr. Winters glanced at her. Insurance, of course. It came through this morning. Insurance that they didn't have. Wren's stomach twisted. Thorne Everett was already pulling strings, manipulating her decision before she'd even made it. I need to step out for a minute, Wren said, kissing Lark's forehead. Be right back. In the hallway, she pulled out her phone and dialed Helena Fry's number. The attorney answered immediately. Tell Mr. Everett I'll meet him, Wren said without preamble, but I have conditions. 3 hours later, Wren sat in the top-floor conference room of Everett Tower in Manhattan. She'd been flown there on Thorne's private jet, a dizzying whirlwind that left her disoriented and nauseous. Thorne entered, flanked by Helena Fry and a slim woman with a sleek bob who carried a tablet. Miss Blackwood. Thorne took the seat opposite her. I understand you have conditions. Wren straightened her spine. My sister's medical care is guaranteed for life, not just 5 years. The bookstore remains in my name, regardless of what happens between us. And I want a separate account with enough money to support myself if I need to. Get away from you. Something like amusement flickered in Thorne's eyes. Planning your escape already. Planning for contingencies, Wren countered. You don't know me, Mr. Everett. I don't know you. This whole arrangement is insane. Your conditions are acceptable, Thorne said, surprising her. Vanessa will handle the details. The woman with the bob nodded. I'm Vanessa Hayes, Mr. Everett's personal assistant. I'll be your primary point of contact. Helena slid a thick contract across the table. We've incorporated your requests. Take your time reviewing it. The ceremony will be next weekend, Thorne said. Wren nearly choked. Next weekend? That's non-negotiable, Thorne cut in. I have business interests that require this to proceed quickly. The door opened, and a man strode in without knocking. Tall, with sandy hair and a perpetual smirk, he carried himself with the easy confidence of old money. Ah, the bride-to-be, he drawled, eyeing Wren with undisguised skepticism. Reese Chamberlain, VP of Everett Industries and best man, apparently. Reese, Thorne's voice held a warning. What? I'm being friendly. Reese dropped into a chair. Just making sure our little bookworm knows what she's getting into. Thorne isn't exactly husband material. Neither am I wife material, Wren retorted. This is a business arrangement, not a romance. Reese laughed. I like her, Thorne. She's got fire. Thorne ignored him, focusing on Wren. Once you sign, Vanessa will take you shopping. You'll need an appropriate wardrobe for your new position. I have clothes, not the right ones. Thorne's tone brooked no argument. The media will be watching us. Appearances matter. Wren skimmed the contract, the legal jargon swimming before her eyes. 5 years as Thorne Everett's wife. The debt erased. Lark's care guaranteed. A strange sense of unreality washed over her as she reached for the pen. "Wait," Thorne said. He removed a small velvet box from his pocket and placed it before her. "This was my mother's." Wren opened it to find an emerald pendant on a delicate platinum chain, the stone deep green and flawless. "It belongs in the family," Thorne said, his voice oddly tight. "Wear it." As he fastened it around her neck, his fingers brushed her skin, sending an unwelcome shiver down her spine. The pendant was heavier than it looked, nestling just below her collarbone. "It has a tracking device," he added matter-of-factly, "for your protection. My family has enemies." Wren's hand flew to the necklace. "You're tracking me. I protect what's mine." Thorne's gaze was unreadable. "Sign the contract, Wren." Her hand shook as she signed her name. 5 years. She could endure anything for 5 years if it meant saving Lark, saving what remained of her family. "Welcome to the Everett family," Reese said, his tone making it clear she was anything but welcome. As Vanessa led her away to begin her transformation into Mrs. Everett, Wren glanced back. Thorne was watching her with that same intense, evaluating gaze that made her feel like he was searching for something specific in her face, something she couldn't possibly understand. 5 years, she reminded herself, just 5 years, and then she'd be free. But as the elevator doors closed, separating her from her new fiancé, Wren couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just signed away much more than she realized. The wedding of Thorne Everett to Wren Blackwood dominated the society pages for a week. "America's most eligible bachelor weds unknown bookstore owner," screamed the headlines. The ceremony at St. Patrick's Cathedral had been a spectacle of wealth and power. 500 guests, none of whom Wren knew. She'd walk down the aisle in a Vera Wang gown that cost more than her annual income toward a man who was essentially a stranger. 6 hours later, their helicopter landed on the expansive lawn of Thorne's Hamptons estate. Wren had barely spoken during the reception or the flight, her mind racing with what would happen next. The wedding night, her stomach churned with dread. A uniformed staff member ushered them inside the sprawling mansion. The foyer alone was larger than her entire Portland apartment, with soaring ceilings and marble floors that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. "Your luggage has been placed in your suite, Mrs. Everett," the housekeeper said. The name jolted Wren. Mrs. Everett. Not Blackwood anymore. She'd become someone else entirely in the span of a day. Thorne checked his watch. "I have calls to make. Ellis will show you to your room." He turned to leave, then paused. From his pocket, he withdrew a small ring of keys. "Your suite is in the East Wing. These provide access to your rooms, the library, and the gardens. The rest of the house is off-limits unless you're with me." Wren took the keys, surprised. "I expected to share your room." Something flickered in Thorne's eyes. "That won't be necessary." He strode away, leaving Wren confused and, absurdly, a little offended. She'd steeled herself for his demands, prepared to endure whatever was required to fulfill their contract. Instead, he'd dismissed her like an inconvenient business obligation. The housekeeper led her to a suite that was larger than Wren's entire bookstore. A massive 4-poster bed dominated the space, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlantic. Her new clothes filled the walk-in closet, racks of designer dresses, shoes and accessories that Vanessa had selected during their whirlwind shopping trip. "Will you be needing anything else, Mrs. Everett?" Ellis asked. "No, thank you." Wren waited until the door closed before sinking onto the bed. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, and completely alone. Sleep proved impossible. At 2 a.m., she gave up and decided to explore. The keyring Thorne had given her included access to the library. Perhaps she could find something to read, to quiet her racing thoughts. She wrapped herself in a silk robe from her new wardrobe and ventured into the silent hallway. Following a series of turns, she finally located an ornately carved door that matched the library key. The space beyond was magnificent. 2 stories of bookshelves, rolling ladders, plush reading chairs, and a massive stone fireplace. The room smelled of leather and paper, instantly comforting to a lifelong bookstore owner, but she wasn't alone. Thorne sat in a leather chair by the dying fire, a crystal tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. On the table beside him lay a silver-framed photograph. When he looked up at Wren's entrance, his eyes were red-rimmed. "I assumed you'd be asleep," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "I couldn't." Wren hesitated at the threshold. "I should go." "Stay." He gestured to the chair opposite his. "Since we're both awake." Wren approached cautiously. In the dim firelight, Thorne looked different, less the imposing CEO and more like a man haunted by something he couldn't escape. "You're not what I expected," he said, studying her. "What did you expect? Someone more like your mother?" Thorne took a long swallow of his drink. "Eleanor was formidable." Wren stiffened. "You knew my mother well? Better than you might think." He set down his glass and picked up the photograph. After a moment's hesitation, he handed it to Wren. The frame held a picture of 2 women in their 20s, arms around each other, laughing on a beach. Wren recognized her mother immediately. The other woman was a stranger, but something about her eyes. "My mother," Thorne said, answering her unspoken question. "And yours? They were sisters." Wren nearly dropped the photograph. "What? No, that's impossible. My mother was an only child." "She wasn't." Thorne's gaze was intense. "Your mother cut ties with her family before you were born. She changed her name, created a new life, but she was born Eleanor Everett, my mother's younger sister." The room seemed to tilt. "We're related, distant cousins." Thorne reclaimed the photograph, his fingertips brushing hers. "I didn't know she was my aunt until after she contacted me about Lark's medical bills. This doesn't make sense." Wren stood, anger replacing shock. "Why would you marry your cousin? Why this whole charade? I promised your mother I'd take care of you and Lark." Thorne's voice was strained. "It was her dying request. The marriage ensures no one can challenge my financial support of you both." "There are other ways to keep promises," Wren hissed. "Ways that don't involve deception." Thorne's jaw tightened. "Your mother was explicit in her instructions. She knew what was at stake, what we're up against." "Which is what, exactly?" Before Thorne could answer, the library door swung open. A woman stood in the doorway, tall and elegant in a midnight blue dress that hugged every curve. Her platinum blonde hair was styled in a sleek updo, her lips painted a perfect crimson. "Thorne, darling," she purred, "aren't you going to introduce me to your new bride?" Thorne rose, tension radiating from him. "Sloane, I wasn't expecting you." "Clearly." Sloane Archibald strode into the room, her eyes sweeping dismissively over Wren. "I stopped by to offer my congratulations, though I must say, this isn't quite the wedding night scene I imagined finding." "It's late," Thorne said coldly. "We can talk tomorrow." "But I'm so eager to get to know the woman who took my place." Sloane extended a manicured hand to Wren. "Sloane Archibald, I was engaged to your husband 3 months ago." Wren felt the ground shift beneath her again. "Engaged?" Until he suddenly broke it off. Sloane's smile was razor sharp. "Now I understand why. He was keeping it in the family, weren't you, Thorne?" Thorne moved between them. "Enough, Sloane. I'm only introducing myself to your cousin bride." Sloane's eyes glittered with malice. "Does she know everything, Thorne? About your parents? About what you've done?" "Get out," Thorne growled. "So she doesn't." Sloane's laugh was brittle. "How fascinating." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Welcome to the family, Wren. You've married a man you don't know at all. I'd watch your back if I were you." The door closed behind her, leaving a silence so thick Wren could barely breathe. "Who was that?" she finally managed. "A mistake," Thorne said grimly. "One of many I've made." Wren wrapped her arms around herself. "I think I deserve the truth, Thorne. All of it." He stared into the dying fire. "The truth is complicated and dangerous, but you're right. You deserve to know." As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Wren realized that everything had changed. The contract she'd signed was for something far more complex than she'd imagined. And the man before her was not just her creditor or her unwanted husband, but family, with secrets that could either save or destroy them both. The Manhattan penthouse was a stark contrast to the Hamptons estate, all steel, glass, and sharp angles, designed to intimidate rather than welcome. After 3 weeks of marriage, Wren and Thorne had settled into an uneasy coexistence, a choreographed dance of avoidance, punctuated by appearances together when necessary. Tonight was one such necessity. Thorne was hosting a dinner for potential investors, and Wren was expected to play the adoring wife. She stood before the bedroom mirror, barely recognizing herself in a midnight blue gown that cost more than her bookstore's quarterly revenue. Her honey-brown hair was swept into an elegant updo by the stylist Thorne had sent, her makeup professionally applied. A knock at the door preceded Vanessa's entrance. "The first guests arrive in 20 minutes, Mrs. Everett." Wren still flinched at the name. "Is Lark's doctor coming tonight?" "Dr. Winters is on the guest list," Vanessa confirmed. "Mr. Everett thought you'd want an update on your sister's condition." Despite his coldness, Thorne had kept his promise regarding Lark's care. She'd been transferred to New York's top hospital with experimental treatments already showing promising results. "Thank you, Vanessa." Wren fastened the emerald necklace, the one piece of jewelry she wore consistently, aware of its tracking capabilities. For everything, Vanessa's professional mask slipped momentarily, showing genuine warmth. "You're doing remarkably well, considering the circumstances." Wren hesitated, then asked the question that had been troubling her. "Did you know about my mother and the Everetts?" "Some of it." Vanessa's eyes darted to the door. "Mr. Everett doesn't discuss family matters often." "And his engagement to Sloane Archibald?" Vanessa's expression tightened. Ms. Archibald was never right for him. The engagement was brief and, in my opinion, a mistake. Before Wren could press further, the door opened again. Thorne stood in the threshold, impeccable in a black tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean frame. His gaze swept over Wren, lingering on the emerald at her throat. "Good, you're ready." His voice was cool, but something flickered in his eyes. "The jet set has arrived, time to perform." Downstairs, the penthouse had transformed into a showcase of power and wealth. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapes among New York's elite. Wren recognized faces from business magazines and society pages, all assessing her with barely concealed curiosity. "Smile," Thorne murmured, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. "They're watching." Wren plastered on a smile. "Is this what our marriage will be? A performance? For now." His fingers tightened slightly against her spine. "We have an audience." Rhys Chamberlain approached, champagne in hand. The happy couple, how convincing. "Rhys," Thorne warned, "relax, I'm playing my part." Rhys turned to Wren. "You clean up nicely, bookworm. Almost pass for one of us." "I'm not trying to be one of you," Wren replied evenly. "Smart girl." Rhys glanced past her. "Heads up, Julian Vega just arrived." Thorne's posture changed instantly, tension radiating from him. "Who invited him?" "No one. That's his style." Rhys downed his champagne. "I'll run interference." "No!" Thorne's arm slid around Wren's waist, drawing her close. "We'll handle it." A tall man with olive skin and calculating dark eyes was making his way toward them. His tailored suit spoke of money, but there was something predatory in his movements. "Thorne," the man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And this must be the new Mrs. Everett, Julian Vega." He took Wren's hand, holding it longer than necessary. "I've been eager to meet you." "Mr. Vega," Wren withdrew her hand. "I wasn't aware you were invited." Julian laughed. "I'm hurt. Surely your husband mentioned me. We go way back." "Not far enough," Thorne said coldly. "What do you want, Julian?" "To congratulate you, of course." Julian's gaze lingered on Wren. "Interesting choice of bride. I knew your father, Mrs. Everett. Daniel Blackwood was a formidable competitor." Wren stiffened. Her father had died when she was 12. His tech company bankrupted shortly before his fatal heart attack. "You knew my father?" "Briefly, before his unfortunate downfall." Julian's eyes glittered. Has Thorn told you how your family's histories intertwine? It's quite the tale. Thorn's grip on Wren tightened. This isn't the place, Julian. No? Then perhaps Mrs. Everett would join me for lunch sometime. I could fill in some historical gaps. My wife's schedule is full, Thorn cut in. If you'll excuse us, we have guests to attend to. As they moved away, Wren hissed, "What was that about my father?" "Not now." Thorn steered her toward a group of investors. "We'll discuss it later." The evening stretched endlessly, Wren's smile growing more strained with each introduction. Finally, as the last guests departed, she kicked off her heels and headed for Thorn's office. "We need to talk," she announced, pushing open the door without knocking. The office was empty, but a panel in the bookshelf stood ajar, revealing a hidden room beyond. Curious, Wren approached. Inside was a small chamber containing a wall safe and several filing cabinets. The safe door was open, revealing stacks of documents. She knew she should leave, but Julian's words about her father echoed in her mind. Impulsively, she stepped into the room and examined the papers on the desk beside the safe. What she found made her blood run cold. Bankruptcy filings for Blackwood Technologies, dated 14 years ago. Internal memos from Everett Industries discussing the acquisition of Blackwood's patents, and a handwritten note in the margin of one document. DB knows. Proceed with caution. DB, Daniel Blackwood, her father. Finding what you're looking for? Wren whirled to find Thorn in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Did your company destroy my father's business?" she demanded, brandishing the papers. "Is that why you married me? Guilt?" Thorn took the documents from her hand. "It's more complicated than it appears." "Then explain it to me," Wren challenged, "because from where I'm standing, it looks like your family ruined mine long before you decided to save me." Thorn closed the safe, his movements deliberate. "Your father's company was developing technology that rightfully belonged to Everett Industries. Technology my father had been working on for years. So you stole it back? We protected our interests." Thorn's jaw tightened. "Your father knew what he was doing." "He died because of that bankruptcy." Wren's voice rose. "The stress triggered his heart attack." "I know." Something like regret crossed Thorn's face. "That was never the intention." "Then what was?" Wren demanded. "What aren't you telling me?" Before Thorn could answer, his phone rang. He glanced at it, then back at Wren, conflict evident in his expression. "It's the hospital." "About Lark?" Wren froze. "What about her?" "There's been a complication." Thorn was already heading for the door. "We need to go. Now." As they rushed to the elevator, Wren's mind reeled. The documents, Julian Vega's insinuations, her father's company, all of it swirled together with fresh fear for Lark. But one question burned brighter than the rest. Who was Thorn Everett really, and what game was he playing with her life? The elevator doors closed on their reflected images, the powerful billionaire and his unwilling bride, bound by secrets neither fully understood, and a contract that grew more mysterious by the day. Lark's complication turned out to be a severe allergic reaction to one of her new medications. By the time Wren and Thorn reached the hospital, the crisis had passed, but the doctor insisted on keeping her under observation for another 48 hours. "You should get some rest," Thorn said as they left Lark's room near dawn. "The car is waiting." Wren shook her head. "I'm staying." For once, Thorn didn't argue. Instead, he surprised her by saying, "Then I'll stay too." They sat in uncomfortable silence in the private waiting room he'd arranged. Wren struggled to reconcile the man beside her, who'd flown specialists in from Switzerland at midnight for her sister, with the corporate predator who might have contributed to her father's death. "Why did you really marry me?" she finally asked. The truth this time. Thorn was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he did, his voice was low. "Your mother asked me to protect you both. This was the most efficient way. By making me your prisoner? By making you untouchable." His eyes met hers. The Everett name carries weight. Protection. From what? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "We need to leave. Now. I told you I'm staying with Lark. Lark has round-the-clock security that I personally vetted." Thorn was already standing. "We have a situation that requires immediate attention." Something in his tone made Wren follow without further argument. In the car, Thorn's face was grim as he studied his phone. "What's happening?" she asked. "There's been a breach at the Hamptons estate." He glanced at her. "Someone accessed your suite last night." "You mean someone broke in?" Wren's hand instinctively went to her emerald necklace. "Looking for what?" "That's what we need to find out." Instead of heading back to Manhattan, they flew directly to the Hamptons. A security team met them at the helipad, led by a man with a military bearing, whom Thorn introduced as Maddox Quinn, head of Everett Security. "Someone bypassed the perimeter alarms," Maddox reported as they walked to the house. "They knew the system." "Inside job?" Thorn asked. "Possibly, or someone with intimate knowledge of your security protocols." Maddox glanced at Wren. Mrs. Everett's suite was the primary target. They searched thoroughly, but appeared to have taken nothing. Inside, Wren's suite had been meticulously ransacked, every drawer emptied, every cushion sliced open. The systematic nature of the search was more disturbing than random vandalism would have been. "What were they looking for?" she whispered. "Something they believe you have," Thorn answered, surveying the destruction. "Or no." After the security team finished their assessment, Thorn insisted they stay somewhere safer. They drove 3 hours to a secluded cabin in the Adirondacks that wasn't listed among the official Everett properties. The cabin proved to be a rustic but comfortable 3-bedroom structure nestled among towering pines. A far cry from Thorn's usual sterile luxury, it felt almost homey with its stone fireplace and worn leather furniture. "My father built this place," Thorn explained as he lit the fire. Snow had begun to fall outside, heavy flakes swirling in the gathering darkness. "No one knows about it except family." "And Sloane Archibald?" Wren couldn't resist asking. Thorn's jaw tightened. "Sloane never came here." "Why did you break off your engagement?" The question had been nagging at her since Sloane's dramatic appearance on their wedding night. "I discovered she wasn't who I thought." Thorn's voice was clipped. Her connection to Julian Vega came to light. "The man from the dinner, what kind of connection?" "The kind that suggests industrial espionage." Thorn poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing one to Wren. "Drink, it'll help with the cold." Wren took a tentative sip, the liquor burning her throat. "So you married me instead?" "Yes, because we're family." "Partly." Thorn stared into the fire. "I met you once before, you know. Years ago." Wren looked up in surprise. "When?" "A fundraiser for autoimmune research. You were 17, accompanying your mother." His eyes remained on the flames. "You gave an impassioned speech about research funding that changed the direction of Everett Medical Investments. I doubled our research budget the next day. I don't remember meeting you. We weren't introduced." I watched from the back of the room. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You were fierce, uncompromising, ready to take on the world for your sister." The snowfall intensified, wind howling around the cabin's eaves. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely, leaving only the firelight illuminating the room. "Perfect," Wren muttered. Thorn rose to gather candles. As he moved around the darkened cabin, Wren studied him in the shifting firelight. Despite everything, she couldn't deny her physical attraction to him. In these unguarded moments, away from his empire, he seemed almost human. "The generator should kick in soon," he said, returning with an armful of candles. "Why did you really bring me here?" Wren asked suddenly. "This place is special to you, personal." Thorn's movement stilled. "You were in danger. You could have taken me anywhere. Why here?" He set down the candles, their eyes meeting in the firelight. "Because I trust you with this place, despite everything." "Why would you trust me? We barely know each other." "Don't we?" Thorn's voice softened. "You're more like your mother than you realize." She could see through people too. The tension between them shifted, electricity that had nothing to do with the power outage crackling in the air. Thorn took a step closer, close enough that Wren could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I promised to protect you," he said quietly, "but I'm beginning to wonder who will protect me from you." Before she could respond, he reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face with unexpected gentleness. Wren's breath caught, her body betraying her with its response to his touch. "This is a bad idea," she whispered, even as she leaned imperceptibly toward him. "Probably the worst," he agreed, his hand cupping her cheek. The kiss, when it came, was nothing like she'd imagined. Not calculating or controlling, but hesitant, almost vulnerable. It deepened quickly, years of tension exploding into something neither could deny. Thorne pulled back suddenly, conflict evident in his expression. "I shouldn't have done that." "Because we're cousins?" Wren asked, her voice unsteady. "Because there are things you don't know, things that would make you hate me." His voice roughened. "And I find that I don't want you to hate me, Wren." The generator rumbled to life outside, lights flickering on throughout the cabin. The spell broken, Thorne stepped away, his walls visibly rebuilding. "Get some rest," he said, his tone once again controlled. "We leave at first light." As Wren lay in bed that night, listening to the storm rage outside, she struggled to make sense of her feelings. She'd sworn never to care for the man who'd forced her into marriage, yet something was changing between them, something dangerous and unpredictable. She touched her lips, still feeling the imprint of his kiss. For the first time since signing their contract, she feared not what Thorne might do to her, but what she might be willing to do for him. 3 days after their return from the Adirondacks, Wren and Thorne maintained a careful distance from each other. Neither mentioned the kiss, though Wren caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. The tension between them had transformed into something more complex than antagonism. Wren immersed herself in Lark's care, spending days at the hospital as her sister grew stronger under the experimental treatment. Thorne buried himself in work, often returning to the penthouse long after Wren had gone to bed. One evening, as Wren returned from the hospital, she found Vanessa waiting in the penthouse foyer, her typically composed expression troubled. "Mr. Everett has been called to Tokyo," Vanessa said without preamble. "An emergency situation with our Asian subsidiaries. He left an hour ago." "For how long?" 3 days, minimum." Vanessa hesitated. "He asked me to give you this." She handed Wren a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Trust no one except Vanessa and Maddox. Stay in the penthouse. I'll explain everything when I return." "What's going on?" Wren asked, looking up from the note. "I don't know the details," Vanessa replied, though something in her eyes suggested otherwise. "But security has been doubled around you and Lark." That night, unable to sleep, Wren wandered to Thorne's office. The hidden room behind the bookshelf beckoned. Using the master key Thorne had given her for emergencies, she entered, determined to find answers. The safe was locked, but the filing cabinets yielded information. In the bottom drawer, she discovered a file labeled Project Phoenix, containing shipping manifests, research data, and pharmaceutical formulas. With her limited scientific knowledge, Wren couldn't understand the technical details, but the basics were clear. Everett Industries was developing a revolutionary treatment for autoimmune disorders, a treatment remarkably similar to what Lark was receiving. A soft sound from the office doorway made her freeze. She whirled, expecting to find Vanessa, but instead faced Maddox Quinn. "Mrs. Everett," Maddox said, his expression neutral. "Finding what you need." "How long have you been watching me?" Wren demanded, clutching the file. "Long enough." Maddox entered the room, closing the door behind him. "Those files are classified. They concern my sister's treatment, don't they?" Wren lifted her chin defiantly. "I have a right to know." Maddox studied her for a long moment. "You do, but not like this. Then tell me what's going on." Wren gestured to the security cameras in the corner of the room. "Or are you going to report me to Thorne?" "Mr. Everett already knows you'd come looking." A hint of amusement crossed Maddox's face. "He said your curiosity would get the better of you eventually." "Then why leave? Why all the secrets?" "Because the people after Project Phoenix just made their move." Maddox's expression turned grim. "Julian Vega and Sloan Archibald have formed a partnership to acquire Everett Medical by any means necessary." "Acquire? You mean steal?" "Industrial espionage, corporate sabotage, whatever it takes." Maddox nodded to the file in her hands. "That formula is worth billions. It's also personal for Mr. Everett because of his parents." What about his parents? Maddox hesitated. That's not my story to tell. But you should know that Julian Vega was involved in their deaths. Wren sank into a chair, the weight of this revelation pressing on her. And my father? Was his company destroyed because of this formula too? Your father was developing a competing treatment, Maddox confirmed. He refused to collaborate with Everett Industries. Things escalated. So Thorne's family did ruin mine? It's more complicated than that. Maddox's eyes held a warning. Julian Vega was your father's silent partner. He's the one who leaked proprietary information to Everett Industries, triggering the legal battles that bankrupted Blackwood Technologies. The room seemed to spin. Julian was my father's partner? Why would he betray him? To destroy both companies. Julian has been playing a long game, Mrs. Everett. Maddox checked his watch. And now he's making his final move. The Tokyo emergency is a diversion. Julian wants Mr. Everett out of the country while they strike. Strike where? At what? At you. The words hung in the air between them. Wren's hand instinctively went to her emerald necklace. Me? Why? Because you're the key to everything. Maddox pulled out his phone, checking a security alert. You always have been. Since you were a child. Before Wren could demand clarification, Maddox's phone rang. His expression darkened as he answered. When? He demanded. Lock it down. No one in or out. He ended the call, turning to Wren. There's been a security breach at the hospital, in the research wing near your sister's room. Wren was on her feet instantly. Lark is secure. My team is with her. Maddox headed for the door. But we need to move you to a safe location. Now. I'm not going anywhere without seeing my sister first. Maddox looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded curtly. Fine. But we do this my way. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the hospital's private entrance, surrounded by Everett security. The research wing was in lockdown, armed guards at every intersection. What happened? Wren asked, as they hurried through sterile corridors. Someone attempted to access the secure lab where your sister's medications are prepared, Maddox explained. When confronted, they claimed to be authorized by Julian Vega. They reached Lark's room to find her awake and startlingly alert. The sickly pallor that had haunted her for years was fading, replaced by healthy color. What's going on? Lark asked, eyeing the security detail. Wren, why is everyone acting so weird? Just a precaution, Wren assured her, embracing her sister. How are you feeling? Better than I have in years. Lark pulled back, her eyes bright. The doctors say my blood work is almost normal. It's like I'm waking up from a 3-year nightmare. The treatment was working. Whatever Project Phoenix was, it was saving her sister's life. Mrs. Everett, Maddox called from the doorway. A moment, please. In the hallway, Maddox showed her security footage on his tablet. A woman in a lab coat was speaking with a guard, her back to the camera. Do you recognize her? Maddox asked. No, wait. Wren squinted at the screen. Zoom in on her hand. The distinctive emerald ring was unmistakable. That's Sloane Archibald. Maddox nodded grimly. She was trying to access your sister's medication. We believe she intended to tamper with it. Horror washed over Wren. I need to speak with Julian Vega. Absolutely not. He knows things about my father, about Thorne's parents. If I can get him talking, it's too dangerous. More dangerous than waiting for them to make another attempt on my sister, Wren challenged. I can draw them out, make them show their hand. Maddox studied her, respect reluctantly dawning in his eyes. Mr. Everett said you were stubborn. It runs in the family, apparently. After a tense negotiation, they formulated a plan. Wren would contact Julian, ostensibly seeking answers about her father. They would meet in a public location equipped with surveillance, with Maddox's team watching every move. What Wren didn't reveal was her real agenda, to find out exactly what Julian knew about Project Phoenix and why her family had been targeted for generations. As she prepared to leave, she noticed her journal on the bedside table. She'd been writing in it since the wedding, documenting her confused feelings as resentment gradually transformed into something dangerously close to love. Impulsively, she left it there, unlocked. If something happened to her, she wanted Thorne to know the truth, that despite everything, she was beginning to care for the man she'd been forced to marry. The cafe in Central Park was Julian Vega's suggestion. Public enough for safety, private enough for conversation. Wren arrived early, wired with a nearly invisible transmitter that Maddox had provided. Everett security personnel were positioned throughout the area, dressed as joggers, tourists, and park maintenance workers. Wren had dressed deliberately in understated clothes, jeans, a simple blouse, minimal makeup. She wanted to appear vulnerable, nothing like the polished Mrs. Everett who appeared in society photographs. Julian arrived precisely on time, sliding into the seat across from her with practiced grace. His tailored suit and confident smile were designed to charm and disarm. "Mrs. Everett," he greeted her, "or do you prefer Wren?" "Let's not pretend this is friendly," she replied. "I want information about my father." Julian signaled the waiter for coffee. "Straight to business, I like that. What specifically do you want to know? Were you his business partner?" "Smart girl." Julian's smile widened. "Yes. I funded much of Blackwood Technologies' research. Your father was brilliant but financially naive, and you betrayed him to Everett Industries." Julian's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Is that what Thorne told you?" "Did you or didn't you?" "Business is rarely black and white, my dear." Julian leaned forward. "Your father was developing something revolutionary, a treatment that could change medicine forever. But he was too idealistic. He wanted to make it affordable, accessible to everyone." He made a dismissive gesture. "Noble, but impractical. So you sold him out for profit." "I tried to broker a partnership with the Everetts. Your father refused." Julian shrugged. "What happened after that was simply business. My father died." "A tragedy," Julian said, not sounding remotely sorry. "Heart conditions are unpredictable." The casual dismissal of her father's death ignited Wren's anger. And Thorne's parents? Was their plane crash unpredictable too? Julian's expression sharpened. "You've been doing your homework." "Not enough, apparently." Wren met his gaze steadily. "What do you want with me, Julian? Why reach out now?" "Because you're the key to everything, Wren Blackwood." Julian sipped his coffee. "You always have been." The same phrase Maddox had used. Wren suppressed a shiver. "What does that mean?" "It means your marriage to Thorne wasn't coincidence or guilt, or even family obligation." Julian set down his cup. "It was necessity. You carry something Thorne needs." "I don't have anything." "Not materially, no. It's in you." Julian tapped his temple. "Or more specifically, in your blood." The world seemed to tilt. "My blood? The autoimmune condition that nearly killed your sister. It's genetic. Your mother had it. You're a carrier." Julian's eyes glittered. "But you're also immune. Your body produces antibodies that counteract the disease, antibodies that are the foundation of Project Phoenix." "That's impossible. I've never been tested for—" "Haven't you?" Julian interrupted. "All those doctor visits when you were a child? The vitamins your mother insisted you take? You've been part of this experiment your entire life, Wren." Her mind raced, memories surfacing, regular blood draws throughout her childhood, disguised as routine checkups. Her mother's insistence on certain doctors, certain medications. "You're lying," she whispered, but doubt had taken root. "The truth is far more interesting than any lie I could craft." Julian checked his watch. "We should continue this conversation somewhere more private. My car is waiting." Warning bells sounded in Wren's mind. "I'm not going anywhere with you." "I think you will." Julian's voice hardened. "Unless you want your sister's next treatment to be her last." "You're threatening Lark." Rage replaced fear. "Security at the hospital has been doubled. Security can be compromised. People can be bought." Julian leaned closer. "Does Thorne know you've been meeting with me behind his back? How do you think he'll react when he finds out his wife is consorting with his enemy?" "He'll know I was trying to protect my sister." "Will he?" "Men like Thorne see betrayal everywhere." Julian stood. "Come with me now, voluntarily, and I promise your sister remains safe. Refuse, and I can't guarantee what might happen." It was clearly a trap, but Wren saw no alternative. If Julian could get to Lark, despite the security. "Fine," she said, standing. "But we stay in public." Julian smiled. "Of course." Outside the cafe, a black SUV waited at the curb. Julian opened the door, gesturing for Wren to enter. She hesitated, scanning the park for any sign of Maddox's team. "Having second thoughts?" Julian asked. "Just wondering if I'll regret this." "Probably," he admitted. "But curiosity is a powerful motivator. Don't you want to know what Thorne's been hiding?" She did. Despite everything, she needed the truth. About her family, about Thorne, about herself. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the vehicle. The SUV didn't remain in public areas. It drove north, out of the city, eventually turning onto a private road that led to an industrial complex near Providence, Rhode Island. The building appeared abandoned, but the security system was state-of-the-art. Inside, Julian led her through sterile corridors to a room that resembled a bunker, with reinforced walls and no windows. "Welcome to my contingency plan," he said, gesturing around. "Impressive, isn't it? It's a prison," Wren observed coldly, "a temporary holding facility." Julian pressed a button and a hidden panel slid open, revealing a wall of monitors. "Thorne should be receiving my message any moment now." On one screen, Wren watched as Thorne's plane landed at JFK, hours earlier than scheduled. His phone rang as he descended the steps. "You lured him back," Wren realized. "This was your plan, all along." "You learned quickly," Julian smiled. "Yes, Thorne is racing to save you as we speak, the devoted husband." "Why? What do you want from him?" "Everything." Julian's facade of charm vanished, revealing cold hatred. "His company, his research, his life, because of Project Phoenix, because of what his father did to mine." Julian's voice hardened. "Charles Everett destroyed my family, stole my father's research, claimed it as his own. When my father threatened to expose him, the Everetts had him committed to a psychiatric facility. He died there, broken and discredited." The pieces began to fall into place. "So this is about revenge. Justice," Julian corrected. "Your father was collateral damage. He stumbled onto the truth about the original formula. He had to be stopped. You killed him?" "I simply withdrew financial support at a critical moment." Julian shrugged. The stress did the rest. Hatred coursed through Wren. This man had contributed to her father's death, threatened her sister, and now planned to use her against Thorne. "What do you want with me?" she demanded. "Your blood contains the key component we need to complete the formula." Julian checked a monitor showing Thorne's car approaching the compound. "And you're the perfect bait." When Thorne arrived, he came alone, as Julian had demanded. Security cameras showed him surrendering his weapon at the entrance. "Your husband is either very brave or very foolish," Julian remarked. "Probably both." Thorne was escorted into the bunker, his face a mask of controlled fury that cracked when he saw Wren. "Are you hurt?" he asked immediately. She shook her head, surprised by the raw emotion in his voice. "How touching," Julian said. "The great Thorne Everett, brought to heel by a bookstore owner. Or should I say, by his cousin." "Let her go, Julian," Thorne said evenly. "Your quarrel is with me. My quarrel encompasses all Everetts and their collaborators." Julian circled them like a predator, "including your lovely bride. Did you tell her the whole truth, Thorne, about why you really married her?" Thorne's jaw tightened. "Wren knows we're family. But does she know she's the missing component of Project Phoenix, that her blood contains the antibodies your father spent decades trying to synthesize?" Julian laughed at Wren's shocked expression. "He didn't tell you, of course not." "Is it true?" Wren asked Thorne, her voice barely audible. The struggle in Thorne's eyes was answer enough. "It's more complicated than he's making it sound. Always complications with you, Thorne." Julian moved to a control panel. "Unfortunately, we're out of time for explanations. The final phase begins now." The moment Julian's hand touched the control panel, the lights flickered. An alarm blared through the compound. "What the hell?" Julian snapped, rushing to a security monitor. The screen showed Maddox Quinn and a tactical team breaching the entrance. Another monitor revealed Sloan Archibald being led away in handcuffs. Your contingency plan had a contingency, Thorne said, his voice cold. You should have checked Wren for transmitters. Julian's face contorted with rage. He lunged for a drawer, pulling out a gun. This isn't over. It was over before it began, Thorne replied. Your entire security team works for me now. They've been Everett employees for months. Julian aimed the weapon at Wren. Then I'll finish what my father started. No one gets Project Phoenix. Thorne stepped in front of her. Your quarrel is with me, Julian. It always has been. You're right. Julian's smile was twisted. But killing her will destroy you more completely. Everything happened at once. Julian fired. Thorne shoved Wren aside. A canister struck the floor near Julian, exploding in a cloud of smoke. Through the chaos, Wren saw Thorne stagger, blood blooming on his shirt. Maddox burst through the door with his team, subduing Julian in seconds. Wren rushed to Thorne, who had collapsed against the wall, his breathing labored. Thorne! She pressed her hands against the wound in his shoulder. Stay with me. His eyes found hers, clouded with pain. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Tears blurred her vision. Why did you do that? Why would you take a bullet for me? His bloodied hand reached up to touch her face. Because I love you, he whispered. God help me, I wasn't supposed to, but I do. Then his eyes closed, and Wren's world dissolved into a blur of paramedics, sirens, and the helicopter ride to New York Presbyterian. Hours later, Wren sat beside Thorne's hospital bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. The bullet had missed vital organs, but he'd lost a significant amount of blood. The doctors assured her he would recover. Vanessa entered with coffee and a stack of files. Maddox sent these from Mr. Everett's private safe. He thought you should see them. The files contained years of correspondence between Thorne and Eleanor Blackwood, Wren's mother. The earliest letter, dated just after Wren's father died, revealed the truth. Eleanor had reached out to her estranged sister's son for help. My daughter carries the key, she had written, but she must never know until she's ready, until you're both ready. Letter after letter documented Thorne's growing involvement in their lives, paying for Wren's college education anonymously, ensuring the bookstore stayed afloat during lean years, funding Lark's initial treatments. All from a distance, all at Eleanor's insistence. The final letter, written days before Eleanor's death, broke Wren's heart. The time is coming when you must protect them both. Julian Vega has resurfaced. He suspects what Wren carries in her blood. The antibodies that could save countless lives, including Lark's. I've kept them apart for years, but I won't be here much longer. You must bring them together, Thorne. Promise me. But know this. If you tell Wren the truth too soon, before she knows your heart, she'll never forgive either of us. Wren was still reading when Lark arrived, accompanied by Dr. Winters. You look awful, Lark said, embracing her sister. Is he going to be okay? The doctors say yes. Wren managed a weak smile. How are you feeling? Better than ever. Lark's eyes were clear, her cheeks flushed with health. Dr. Winters says my latest tests are normal. Completely normal. Can you believe it? Dr. Winters nodded. The treatment has been more successful than we dared hope. We're cautiously optimistic about a full recovery. After they left, Wren returned to her vigil. Hours later, Thorne stirred, his eyes opening slowly. Wren? His voice was hoarse. I'm here. She took his hand. Julian and Sloane are in custody. Lark is better. Everything's okay. The letters, he said, noticing the files beside her. You know everything now. Almost everything. She met his gaze steadily. Why didn't you tell me what I was to Project Phoenix? Why the secrecy? Thorne struggled to sit up. Because I promised your mother, and because I was afraid. Of what? That you'd think I married you only for your blood. For science. His fingers tightened around hers. The truth is, I've watched over you for 13 years. I've seen your strength, your loyalty, your fierce love for Lark. I admired you long before I met you. So the marriage was just your way of protecting me? Fulfilling your promise? At first, Thorne's gaze didn't waver. But living with you, seeing you every day, everything changed. I never expected to fall in love with you. Wren's breath caught. What about our family connection? We're cousins. Third cousins, he corrected. Legally and genetically distant enough that it doesn't matter, but if it matters to you, it doesn't, she interrupted, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Not anymore. 6 months later, the Blackwood Everett Clinic opened its doors in Portland, specializing in autoimmune diseases. Project Phoenix, now fully developed thanks to Wren's voluntary participation, was being distributed at an affordable price point that would have made Daniel Blackwood proud. Lark managed the new clinic, her health fully restored, while Wren divided her time between the expanded bookstore and the Everett Foundation, which provided financial assistance to families facing medical crises. Julian Vega and Sloane Archibald faced multiple charges of corporate espionage, attempted kidnapping, and attempted murder. The trials would take years, but neither would threaten the Everett family again. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Wren and Thorne stood before a small gathering of friends and family in the garden of the renovated bookstore. No press, no society photographers, just the people who mattered most. "I never planned to renew our vows so soon," Thorne said, taking her hands in his. "But our first wedding wasn't real. This time I'm marrying you because I love you, not because of a promise or a contract." Wren smiled through tears. "And I'm marrying you because I choose to, not because I have to." The emerald necklace still rested at her throat, no longer a tracker, but a symbol of their unlikely journey from enemies to partners to lovers. After the ceremony, they visited Eleanor Blackwood's grave. Wren placed white roses beside the headstone. "She would be happy," Thorne said softly, seeing her family reunited. "She manipulated us both," Wren pointed out, though without anger. "For the right reasons. The best reason." Wren rested her head against his shoulder. "Love." On the drive home, Thorne's hand found hers. "Any regrets, Mrs. Everett?" Wren thought of the day she'd signed that contract, convinced she was sacrificing her future. Instead, she'd found a family, a purpose, and a love she never expected. "Not one," she answered, squeezing his hand. "Not anymore." That evening, as they stood on the balcony of their Manhattan penthouse watching the sunset, Thorne pulled her into his arms. "I have something to tell you," Wren said, her eyes shining. "Dr. Winters confirmed it today." Thorne froze, instantly concerned. "Is everything all right?" "More than all right." She guided his hand to her stomach. "Our family is growing." His face transformed with wonder and joy. "A baby? Due in spring." She smiled up at him. "Apparently our genes work quite well together, distant cousin or not." As Thorne gathered her close, murmuring promises against her hair, Wren reflected on their extraordinary journey. From a debt-ridden girl forced to marry a seemingly cruel billionaire, to a woman who had found her perfect match in the most unlikely place. Their wedding night had changed everything, setting them on a path neither could have predicted. But the greatest change had been in their hearts, from suspicion to trust, from obligation to choice, from contract to love. Unbreakable bonds, forged in fire, stronger than blood or fortune or the past itself. It was, Wren decided as Thorne's lips found hers, worth every moment of the pain that had brought them here, worth everything.